It's Journeys with JC. Don't you wait, don't delay. Pack your dreams and chase them far away. Every laugh, every view, every chance you take is a piece of the life that you're meant to make. Yeah, Journeys with JC. Let the adventure begin. The world's calling out. Are you ready to dive in? Journeys with JC. Let the anchor raise high. Set your sights on horizons where the world meets the sky. From the space coast to the seas, he's living out loud. Here's to Journeys with JC.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Journeys with JC Wednesday Live. I'm your host, JC, in the Compass Lounge. Grab your favorite beverage, pull up a comfy chair, and let's go. Tonight, we're going to be talking about accessible cruising. Tonight's guest is a familiar face to many, and I'm happy to welcome into the Compass Lounge. Please give a warm welcome to Cruising Chris M. There he is. Welcome in. Glad to have you here tonight. Thanks for coming in. Really appreciate it.
Hey, I'm glad to be here. Appreciate you having me, JC.
Let me just, before we even get started, I got to give a really big shout out and thank you for one of my song that you made for me, which is tremendous. I love it. Play it all the time. Away from it. Crazy. And sent me a bunch of merch, which I got out tonight. Normally I wear like Caribbean style shirt, but in your honor tonight, I got the shirt on, so I get that for you for that piece tonight. And yeah, really appreciate you being here talking about this. And so just want to talk a little bit about who you are, which most people probably know who you are, but you can go ahead and just I see you on all different platforms, so including your own.
Right. Well, appreciate being here. You know, I've got my YouTube, Cruising Chris M. I've got Facebook, Cruising Chris M. Basically, any platform except TikTok, I've got Cruising Chris M. So I'm just not on TikTok. So hey, that's where you can find me. So appreciate being here. Yeah,
and make sure you go show him some love. YouTube channel, subscribe to him, and he's got some great stuff out there, folks. So definitely check him out. Check his YouTube channel out. Great videos, and we appreciate that. So we're gonna talk a little bit about accessible cruising, and we got a little experience in this, and maybe you can give us a little insight in different things that we might want to learn and know about this.
Yep. Yeah, accessible cruising is a different monster, and if you've never done it or never had to experience it, you know, obviously if you do have a disability that you live with, it's something you need to know, but you know, accidents can happen. You know, it could be 2 weeks before you cruise, you break your ankle or blow out your knee or something like that. So something like this can pop up, and, you know, you don't want to give up your cruise if you don't have to. So, you know, especially if you don't have cruise insurance, which you should always have cruise insurance.
Definitely.
But if you don't, you don't want to lose a $2,000 cruise because you blow out your knee. So, you know, being able to get a mobility scooter or a knee chair or something like that, and knowing how to go through the process will really make for a good experience.
Right. So you gotta say a little. We got Cruising Complete in here. We got. Let's see. So how's everyone doing? Cheryl, hello. Hey, JC, how you doing, Cheryl? Alberta, hello. It's always hard to keep up with the chat. Nicole, hello, everybody. Lana's in the house. We got you in here. We got Caleb. Hey, Caleb, welcome in. Everybody's saying hello to everybody. Mrs. JC's in here in the chat. And Nightbot, that's new to me. I don't know much about the Nightbot, so
yep.
I don't know how the Nightbot's going to play into all this, Chris.
Well, Nightbot's just a little program that runs in the background that will just flash the messages. So, like if somebody wants to drop their link, they can do that. And, you know, just says, hey, hit that smash button, you know, remember, hit that like, you know, subscribe, all that stuff. So, you know, we can talk off screen if you ever get it.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it's just, I see everybody using that. I just happen to see it in the chat. And I'm like, oh, that's new to me. Lana says,
appreciate that, Lana.
Yeah. Hi, Cruising Chris, my both favorite YouTubers. I appreciate that. The Nightbot saying, smash the like button. All right, looks like we're caught up. So I know maybe we'll start off with I know we talked a little bit about this, when to actually book accessibility rooms, because from what I read, they can go quickly and then you won't be able to get an accessible room.
Yes. Depending on the size of the ship, obviously the older the ship, the fewer accessible cabins are going to be available. And different cruise lines have different levels of accessibility. I know with Carnival, they have full accessible cabins, and then they have partial or side accessible cabins. So depending on your level of need, you want to try to book as soon as you can. So if you're going on a smaller ship, they obviously have fewer accessible cabins, and it may be harder to do that. So what I always try to do is I always try to plan ahead ever since I've been in cruising. So as soon as the cruise line releases their new schedule, I try to look as far ahead as I can and try to book those cruises. So, Royal Caribbean will announce their summer 2028 schedules around October or around November, December of this year. So when those are released, that's when I'm going to start booking. That way I've got my choice of itineraries, I've got my choice of ships, and I can look at what I want to do. And if I don't see anything that I like with Royal Caribbean, I can look at Celebrity, I can look at Princess, any other cruise line. I just, choose to go on. So I always look at itineraries first, and then I go with cruise line, and then, the ship itself is actually one of my last choices. So
Gotcha. Now, do you see a big difference between, I know you've been on probably a few different cruise lines. Do you see a difference in cruise lines with the accessible rooms? Is some bigger than others? Amenities different? Is there any differences that you can kind of pinpoint on different ships?
On the older ships, they can sometimes be a little bit harder to navigate. Prime example, on Jewel of the Seas, it's an older Royal Caribbean ship. I believe it's a Vision class ship. And when you go to their park cafe, which is in the solarium, the place where they serve the pizza is not accessible. There's a 3-step area to get up to it. And I could not get up there to get any pizza. And they said, well, just pull up, holler at somebody and they'll bring your pizza down to you. That's inconvenient because I don't want to cut in front of anybody. I'm a rule follower. I don't want to get up in front of anybody. I don't want anybody to be mad at me. Hey, he's in a scooter. Why does he get special privileges? I don't want that to happen. Right. So, I would, if my wife's available, I'd have her go with me. Or I'd, follow somebody behind somebody and I'd say, hey, I'm behind you. And when you get up there, would you mind getting me a couple slices or something like that? Right. I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah, I know.
And that's the only one that I've really ran into that's had something that's not accessible. Well, there's MSC on the seashore. There was a couple of doors that I could not get into over by the sports bar. For some reason, it had about a 2-inch lip that I couldn't get over. But that was just a one-off kind of an area. So I don't know what the deal was with that. Mm-hmm. And that's a newer ship, so I don't know what it was with that. But, some of the older ships, they do have smaller elevators, and I do have a larger scooter. So when you get in there, your scooter pretty much takes up the entire elevator front to back. There's room on the sides typically, especially in some of those glass elevators that go out of the Centrum. But yeah, those are the main differences. And some of the hallways can usually be a little bit more narrow, which can be harder to navigate to get inside and outside of your room. So if you're not very experienced at driving a mobility scooter, it can sometimes be trying to back up a semi truck into a size of a parking spot made for a Kia.
I'll give a shout out to Danny. Welcome in, Danny. Malibu's in the house. How you doing, Malibu? Everybody saying hello to everybody here. I'm just trying to see what else we got going on. Cruising Chris saying hi to Danny. I think that. Oh, Plum Crazy's in the house. Hey, Plum Crazy. Hey, friends, Cruising Chris. I love that you're on here with JC. Such a great topic. Appreciate you being here, Plum Crazy.
Appreciate it, Plum. Malibu, appreciate you too, brother.
Totally not. Plum Crazy says, totally not jealous that JC beat me to getting you on. All right. Looks like we're caught up there. Let me ask you a question on scooters. 3-wheel scooter versus 4-wheel scooter. I would think the 4-wheel's more stable. You know what I mean? Stuff. What's your thoughts on that?
The 4-wheel scooters are more stable. However, when you're on a cruise ship, I like my turning radius, so I go for a 3-wheel scooter. I've considered myself being pretty good at driving them, so I know how fast I can take a corner. I know how I can challenge myself on a 3-wheel scooter. The 4-wheel scooters turn like a Mack truck. They have no turning radius.
Yeah.
So especially, as you're on cruise ships, everything's smaller. So, even in an accessible cabin, which does have a lot more room, you've got to do a 5-7 point turn just to get that thing turned around. Where in a 3-wheel scooter, you can turn it around a lot easier. They do have anti-tip wheels on the 3-wheel scooters, but if you're acting silly, which I have been known to do sometimes, it can tip. But I have never tipped a scooter while moving. So, you hear these stories about, I guess there was a story here recently, a couple weeks ago, where a lady tipped her scooter over. Now she's suing Carnival and suing the scooter company and all this other thing because she saw a turn or she didn't see the turn coming up, going down a gangway. Well, how do you not see a turn coming up?
Right.
I don't know. So
I did see that. I see an article on that too. And when I did a little research, it said that that when I looked out there, obviously, with AI and all that, there wasn't a lot of incidents with the scooters. We had, unfortunately, the woman that passed away from driving off the pier, which I don't know. When I hear something like that, I'm thinking like maybe something happened before that. Did something happen medically?
And I had heard that she had a medical emergency before she drove off the pier. So
yeah, so that's usually when I hear something like that. That's kind of where I go with that. But it was surprising that there's not many incidents that we know of, anyways, that involve the scooters. And now, how with the 3-wheel, how is it going down the gangway? Because sometimes they can be steep.
Yeah, Royal Caribbean actually has some of the steeper gangways that I've been on, and it's not bad because you usually have a crew member that will help you down. And I usually look at them and I'm like, I'm good, but they insist on doing it, which is fine, because the way that they work is whenever you do not have the throttle engaged, the brake automatically kicks in. So it's pretty good, pretty easy about going down. You just turn it down to the lowest setting and just take your time.
Right.
So going up, I usually, kick the throttle all the way up, and I say, I just hope I just don't jump the thing, and take anybody out as going in. But usually I always let the gangway clear before I even start, going up the ramp.
Right.
So, it's basically that getting over that lip at the edge of the gangway when you're leaving the ship is usually the hardest. And sometimes I've had to get off my scooter to get it over because it does drag going over the lip. But the easiest ships that I've gotten on and off are the NCL ships and Celebrity. They seem to be built just for, not having steep ships, of what I've experienced so far.
Are those newer ships that you compared that with?
The Apex was a newer ship, but I mean, the Apex is still 10 years old, I think. So, so that was a newer one. And then the NCL ship, it was the Getaway. So it's a fairly older ship too. I want to say it's probably about eight or 10 years old too. But they just seem to, have their doors in the right area in order to fit the piers. So.
Hey, Alvin, how you doing? Hello, JC and Cruising Chris. We got Plum Crazy says, you also have to keep in mind lips on sidewalks with scooters, as Mike learned at Universal. Obviously, I guess they had an incident at Universal with a lip on the sidewalk.
The lips and the curbs, and especially when you're in Nassau, some of the sidewalks are non-existent. They're I'm used to driving in Indiana, and you got some tire rim eaters, and same thing when you're driving in Nassau on a scooter. You're driving down a sidewalk, and all of a sudden the sidewalk will end, and you've got a 1.5-foot drop, from a curb, and you've got to back it up and turn around.
Yeah, that's kind of tough because now you came down whatever sidewalk, you come to this like, oh, now who knows, you got to back up as far as you have to get off of it. Yeah,
it's basically a dead end. Albert asked a question: do any ships have rental scooters? The ship itself does not rent scooters. However, they do have preferred providers. Typically, a preferred provider is Scootaround, is what most of the cruise lines use. However, you do not have to rent from Scootaround. Scootaround will typically deliver into your stateroom, which I personally do not like, because that means you're reliant upon a wheelchair to get into the ship. And then once you get onto the ship, they like to take that wheelchair back, which means you're reliant upon finding another wheelchair to take you to your cabin. I personally like renting from a company that will deliver to my hotel, which means I'm responsible for getting from that hotel to the ship. So I'm paying an extra expense. Now, depending on where you're at, if they have a wave, which like Uber Wave or Lyft Wave, you're going to pay the same price as what somebody does for that. Port Canaveral, I found a company there, Airport Canaveral. They charge a fairly reasonable fee. When you get down to Fort Lauderdale and Miami, they are kind of outrageous with their fees. But, you can find a couple of companies that do that, or you can find a company that will deliver outside the cruise port for you, which means that, when you get in the day before at the hotel, you're without transportation, you're without a scooter. So you can use Special Needs at Sea, which will sometimes deliver to your room or deliver it to the port. And another one that I like to use is a company called Cloud of Goods. And they, typically will deliver to the port itself. And then you can leave it at the port too, and they will tell you where to leave it. They typically have a lockbox for the key that you can get into it, and also lock it up for when you leave. And they will leave it at a certain area. They'll take a picture of it and say, okay, you can pick up your scooter here. And I can tell them, I want to pick up my scooter at 9 o'clock in the morning because I usually have an early embarkation time. So It works out pretty well for me.
Oh, good. Hey, Mickey's Adventures, welcome in. Plum Creed says, hey, JC and Chris, hit the like button and subscribe. Yes, please hit that like button.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it helps us out for sure.
Yes.
That, believe it or not, that little thing that seems so small means so much to us YouTube channels. It really does.
Sure does. It sure does.
We do appreciate it. Mr. Plum Crazy, team meat.
Team meat. Absolutely.
How's it going? Let's see. Cheryl says, I saw a video last week of a lady that fell backwards down some steps on her scooter. Oh, wow. I did not see that video. Did you see that one, Chris?
I have not heard about that one, but it can happen. There are a couple of ships, especially the older ones, where the elevators open up, and if you back up too far, it goes right into the stairwell. One ship that I recall was Celebrity Constellation. I was on there back in January, February of this year, and you get off the elevators, and if you backed up way too far, it went straight down the stairwell. And my wife would always say, whoa, 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 whoa. And I was like, I know.
Right,
so,
right.
It's right there. Do any of the scooter rental companies meet you at the drop-off point? They can meet you, but typically they put them in a drop box or a lock box for you, or they will hide the key in a certain area. So, they don't necessarily have to physically meet you. So you pre-arrange payment and everything. So everything's set up for you with that. So, I've never had an issue with somebody not dropping off a scooter on time. And I've gone on 16 cruises so far. So I've had them either meet me at the hotel, or when I'm down in South Florida, I'll have them I'll have them drop them off at the port for me.
Oh, that's good. Hey, Kimmy, how you doing? Hi, Chris and JC. Alberta says, there any restrictions on size of person as far as weight? I know on airplane there is.
Yes, with mobility scooters, they have different size scooters for different size people. The scooter that I get a heavy duty scooter, and they have different weight restrictions. So you need to look at what they have. And with Scootaround and Special Needs at Sea, and with Cloud of Goods, you need to look at what weight limit they can have. Now, with some of the scooter companies, you can go over the weight a little bit, but you cannot tell them that in person. So, the cutoff weight is typically 400 pounds. If you weigh like 405, 410 or something like that, just tell them you weigh 395 and you're good. It's not going to break the scooter.
Right.
Because the batteries that they have in there, I've never had a scooter that's ran out of battery and things like that. So, typically if you're a larger person, you want to get the larger scooter because it will have more battery life and it will be better for you. And then, if you're not very good at driving a mobility scooter, I would recommend, asking for a four-wheel because it does have more stability, but it is going to be harder to turn when you're in tighter areas. So just be aware of that.
Have you? How about tender ports? Have you come across anything with tender ports? Will they let you off at a tender port?
Have not personally experienced it, but with talking with one of my friends, Randy Scroback, who operates Scrow's Nest on YouTube, he is like an OG of mobility scooters and cruising. He is somebody that I watched when I first started cruising, and on Carnival, their ships are set up and they have tender boats that you can actually drive directly onto the tender boat with your mobility scooter.
Wow.
If you have a portable mobility scooter that can easily be lifted, because there are some mobility scooters that can fold up that weigh 50 to 75 pounds, you and your partner or sometimes the crew will help you move that onto the tender boat. My mobility scooter that I use weighs 170 pounds. I'm not going to get that on a tender boat.
No.
And I'm not going to get that down the stairs or anything like that. So usually if I'm going on a cruise that has a tender, I take a portable wheelchair that I can actually fit in a suitcase, or I take a rollator with me so I can actually experience the tender. The last cruise I took that had a tender was the Getaway. We went to Great Stirrup Cay because they had the pier shut down, and I'm glad I did because it was a very good experience to get actually off the port at Great Stirrup Cay, so it was nice.
Yeah, I know I read somewhere that I think 50 pounds was the cutoff. The crew they allow the crew to lift like 50 pounds, and they'll do that on a scooter. But after 50 pounds is I think the cutoff where they would.
But I mean, if it weighs a little bit more, though, I mean, they handle bags that are more than that too. So.
Kimmy says, due to my MS progression, I'll have to start renting or getting a scooter for future cruises. Got a good name of a brand?
A brand. I'm trying to think. My brain's going blank right now, but I call it my freaking Cadillac, but it's. Give me a second. So
yeah, we'll get back to that. Okay.
Yeah,
because we were talking about something else. I guarantee you it's going to pop into your head. Oh yeah,
that's what it will. It will. So
all right, we'll get back to you on that, Kimmy. We're going to hold that thought temporarily. Let's see, just doing a little chat checking here. Armstrong Adventures. Hello, welcome in.
Pride Victory are the best scooters. Pride Victory 10 is a good heavy duty scooter, depending on what your size is. But Pride mobility scooters are quality scooters. If you don't need one that's a heavy duty scooter, go with one of the smaller ones that's portable, because then you can put it in your car very easily and stuff like that. But if you do need a heavier duty scooter, the Pride Victory 10, it's a non-foldable scooter, or there's another one that's above that. That is a non-foldable scooter for the heavy duty, for the adults that are over 400 pounds. I think it goes all the way up to 500 pounds. So, but I'm a big fan of the Pride mobility scooters.
Another thing I read, Chris, was you can plan your excursion, and I read this. This was just stuff I've been reading online, preparing for this chat we're going to have tonight, and it said that you could book your excursion, but there was some instances where a cruise ship, due to tide or whatever, the ramp was so steep that they wouldn't let the people that actually had excursions that needed that scooter, they wouldn't let them off because the ramp was too steep.
I've never personally experienced that, but I'm sure that there are instances. I always check at the shore excursions desk and customer service when we have a tender port, because I always say, can I take a wheelchair off, and do this? They say, ask if you can fold up, ask if you can walk, and stuff like that. So, they just want to check to make sure, but the captain has the final say if you can or cannot get off the ship. So if he determines that, if you have a mobility challenge and he says you can't get off, you can't get off.
Okay.
You're not going to win that argument.
Yeah, no.
So, But I've had some fairly steep ramps, but I've never had an issue of them saying you can't get off the ship. So
I noticed. I know there was a note I had too. A question to pose was, do you think people, especially people that maybe don't have scooters at home and they're renting one for the ship to go on these cruises and whatnot, do you think they need to have like a little, I don't know how long it would be, education on the scooter? Like, hey, this is how to run it, use it. This is how you're going to go down the gangways. You think you should have like an educational thing with the scooters?
most scooter companies do have that. I know with Scoot Around, with a couple of people I've rented from, they send you a video before you actually pick up the scooter, and you have to check a box saying you have watched the video, so you understand how to operate it, understand it's a machine, understand that you're liable for it, and accidents can happen. Special Needs at Sea and also Scoot Around do that. So, and there's plenty of videos out there of how to operate, how to take it apart, what to do if your lights are flashing, or if it beeps at you 10 times when you turn the key. A lot of people don't think about that stuff. So you really have to pay attention to that. And if you've never operated a scooter before, you really need to watch those videos to educate yourself, because you can hurt yourself or hurt someone else if you don't know how to operate it.
Yeah, I know I've moved a couple, in different people that I've been with and stuff like that. Oh, I just try to move the scooter and not knowing how to, you hit that thing and, I go flying because I'm not used to the throttle or something like that. So if you're not used to them, it can really shock you or surprise you when you hit that throttle and you just take off.
It really can. And if you have it turned all the way up on the fast function, those things can, they're electric motors, so they get up and go. So yeah, it really can. Alvin, I saw your comment. So the kind of scooter that you would need to look into, and if you go to Special Needs at Sea or you go through Scoot Around, you would get the HD scooter for them, and you actually have to call the company to make sure that there's one available. And every time I've called, there's always been one available, but you want to try to reserve it as soon as possible. So if you're cruising in 6 months, you want to try to get that reserved 6 months out. So,
hey, Bald Eagle, welcome in. Thanks for coming in tonight. And we're just going to say one more time, folks, please hit that like button if you haven't already. It really helps the channels. We appreciate it. Alberto even said, I was surprised how fast they were, So
they can get up and go.
I guess the next question too is, not when you come on with a scooter, okay. When you go to your oh my god, now I'm having a brain fog. Your tender station, what do they call it? Muster station. Oh my god. Mm-hmm. I think I caught what you got, Chris.
Yeah.
When you go to your muster station, do they give you special instructions because you're on a scooter?
They never have. I go there. The only time I've ever had special attention brought to me was when I was on NCL. It was after I left my muster station. There was a guy standing right there by the elevators, asked me what cabin I was in, and he took some notes down on his clipboard and he said thank you, and I went about my way. So that way, if there ever was an emergency, they probably knew what cabin I was at in case I needed help down the stairs or something along those lines.
Which I think is a good thing. That's pretty good that they actually did that. I mean, that's really thinking ahead of what's going on,
Right.
And
do
you do it? Yep. Okay.
Yeah. If there's ever is an emergency, I mean, and the elevators are down, you have to, figure out a way to get out, because, the cabin, you're not put on a certain floor just because you have a mobility issue. Your cabins can go anywhere from the 14th, 16th deck all the way down to deck 2. So you may be going up or downstairs depending on where you need to go for your muster station or to get to a lifeboat.
Yeah. And I know on my last cruise, there was a person staying next to us, and they had our rooms were small. They're inside cabins. They had their scooter in the hallway most of the time. And I was surprised that Royal Caribbean let them do that, but no one seemed to question it.
See, and that kind of burns my butt. It really does, because I'm a rule follower, and you really need to keep that, because that is a safety hazard for me as someone who uses a scooter, because if there's an emergency and I need to get past there, 2 scooters typically cannot fit down a hallway. And, it really causes a challenge for people in wheelchairs, people in rollators, and things like that. If you ever find yourself in a cabin that cannot fit your scooter, number one, Carnival will not let you on if your scooter cannot fit in your cabin. If you cannot fold your scooter up and you cannot physically get it in your cabin, they will make you go rent a different scooter.
Wow.
Or they will decline you not get on that ship. So you will lose your fare and they will not reimburse you.
Oh, geez.
So, yeah, that they are serious about that, and they say that all the time. John Heald says that on his page. People ask him questions all the time. And I think all cruise lines need to adopt that policy, and they all say that, but they don't enforce it. So it really becomes problematic when you do park your scooter out in the hallway. I don't care if it's for 5 seconds and you're just running in to get something. Take the time to get your scooter inside your cabin. On most ships, even on some of the older ships, they have automatic doors. So as soon as you scan your key, your door is going to open for you and go in. So, and one of the fanciest ones I've experienced was on NCL. They actually have a motion sensor on their door. So when I'm in the doorway, it will not try to close on me, where on any other ship I've been on, the door will try to shut on you. And they're heavy doors.
Yeah.
So I'm sure. I'll up against my scooter. But NCL has the motion sensors, so it won't try to close on you. But, if you're not anywhere near the elevators or something like that, where you can't just park it in that large area to where you're not going to be in someone's way, you need to get your scooter inside your cabin. Otherwise, it's going to cause problems for somebody else.
Now that you mentioned that, we had inside cabins. That was not a accessible cabin. That was a regular cabin. Now that you said that, I'm thinking back. That was a regular cabin. That wasn't accessible.
Right.
Maybe I wonder if they couldn't even get it through the door or something.
Right, exactly. And that's the thing is you can tell an accessible cabin because it will have a wider doorway, and they'll typically have a thing on the outside, especially if it's an older ship. It will be a little box that when you swipe your key, it'll automatically open the door. If it's a newer ship, it'll just look like a regular key swipe thing, and it'll just open the door for you. So,
Plum Crazy said the door on the Disney Dream was heavy and kept closing on us too. Alberta says, is there any part of the ship where they will not allow the scooter?
I have not experienced that where they've said you can't go here. Typically when you go into a theater, you're, stopped at the top row because they don't have, they have stairs going down to the front row. If you ask someone, you can typically find a crew member that will take you down to the bottom row. I know on MSC you can get down to the front rows. They actually have handicapped areas where you can park your scooter in the front rows. I know on Royal Caribbean, it's not advertised, but you can get down to the front row if you want to.
Oh, really?
If you're really that interested in it, you just got to talk to the right people. When I went on Carnival, when I showed up in my scooter, I got there, probably about 5 or 6 minutes before the doors were supposed to open. And one of the crew members saw me in my scooter and said, okay, you can go ahead and come in now. But they didn't let anybody else come in. So that way that we could get our seats and then park our scooter somewhere else. So it would not, interfere with any of the performers because it was for Celestial Strings. So we were, nice and out of the way for everybody.
I noticed because we cruise mostly Royal Caribbean, and I noticed when we go into the shows in the theater, a lot of the scooters will park along the back rail,
right,
and just kind of sit in their scooter to watch the show. Or they have chairs where you can pull your scooter up, you get out of the scooter onto the chair, but you're still like in that back rail row.
Yeah.
I was unaware that you could actually go up to the front row if you talk to somebody.
Yeah, if you look down, there's doorways down at the bottom, and they've got a handicap sign over the top of them. So there are ways that you can get down there. You typically have to go through a back door, and you will go through a crew area, and you'll be escorted by a crew member to get down through there. And I've done that only once, but it wasn't that great of an experience because you're looking straight up at someone, and you're typically in somebody else's way. So
the front row is way overrated because, like you said, you're looking up in the air and it's like you
right.
can't see anything.
Right. Now, on Yeah, MSC was real easy because they actually do have a hallway that you can get down, and they have some spaces for you. But yeah,
Kimmy's saying, but yet scooters are still left in the hallways on Carnival.
and all you can do is call down to guest services, and they will take care of it.
Yep.
Hopefully.
Hey, Cam fam, welcome in.
Hey, Cam fam, appreciate you stopping by.
All right. How about on when you do go on an excursion? I noticed when me and the wife were looking at an excursion, it actually said accessible excursion on it. Now, does that mean
Right.
like you're going to go on a bus and you can actually take your scooter on the bus? Like there's a ramp or a wheelchair ramp that will bring you on the bus?
Yes, they have certain excursions that are accessible, available, and typically those are far and few between, and they book up fairly quick. And there are some excursions that are not handicap accessible. So you really have to pick and choose what you want to do. I am someone that rarely does an excursion in ports for that mere fact, because it's very hard to find an accessible excursion. And if you do, they're typically a little bit higher priced, especially on Royal Caribbean. The only time that we've really done an excursion was when we were in St. Kitts. We did one, and the other ones that I've done accessible excursions, I've typically arranged on my own, where I found my own private transportation and stuff like that. When I'm going on Princess to Alaska, they did have a lot of accessible excursions available. So in every port, I am doing an excursion because I've been told by everybody who's gone to Alaska, and this is my first time, that you need to do excursions because you need to experience Alaska. So I am doing that. So, I'm very much looking forward to it. But yeah, the buses typically they do have a handicap bus, and they're limited to maybe 2 scooters per bus. So yeah, they can do that.
Oh, so there's a limit, only 2 scooters per bus.
Yeah, typically, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Some can only handle 1. So your first one, first serve. So.
Well, thanks, Cam fam, for coming in on my side, also and hitting the like button. I appreciate it. Let's try to see what else we got going on. Have you been to any ports where you found that the scooter, it just isn't worth it? Cobblestone streets or something where you're like, you know what, this just isn't worth taking my scooter out over here to beat it up.
I wouldn't say it's not worth it, but I say it's kind of inconvenient. The last time I was in Cozumel, we were on Celebrity Constellation, and we didn't park at the normal port we parked at. I think we were at the downtown port. So it was one of the ports that I hadn't been at in Cozumel before. So it was havoc trying to find our way out. Every time we went to an elevator, it was out of order, and you had to go up and around to get out. So it was inconvenient, but we eventually did find a way to get up and out of that area. So it's been inconvenient, but I've never gotten off at a port and say, no, this is not worth it, because that I'm going for the experience. So
right.
Yeah, there's cobblestones, there's brick walkways, and Nassau, my wife and I like to do our own excursions. We did a church tour on our own one of these times. We just looked up Google Maps and just found churches and went and toured churches on our own. Like I said, you'll go down sidewalks that are non-existent. You'll go down sidewalks where the curb immediately stops, and they're impassable, and you're walking on the street half the time. So
right,
you just got to pick your poison when you're doing it.
Right. Plum Crazy says, Amy said last week, excursions are the big thing for Alaska. Yeah, if you look at Alaska, boy, Plum Crazy Adventures folks, check them out. And there was a last Thursday, I think their live stream, they had Amy on there, and they talked a lot about Alaska. It was a really good live stream. So if you haven't checked that out and looking at Alaska, make sure you go check out Plum Crazy Adventures, because it was a really good stream. Jet Streams, what's up?
Yep, and on the go with YOLO. Just got off Star Princess, which is a ship I'm going on, and she talked very highly about the ports, and a lot of other people that I've spoke with about going to Alaska, talked very highly about the ports too. So
Alberta says, is the excursions part of the package deal or price? The excursions are separate from the cruise that you pay extra for.
Yes.
And they have a bunch of different ones. The thing I will say about excursions is that this is coming from Royal Caribbean now, and I'm not promoting getting excursions through Royal Caribbean. But if you book an excursion through Royal Caribbean and that excursion is late, they will hold the ship for you because it was a Royal Caribbean excursion. Now, if you book your own excursion in a private company and they're late, not saying they won't, but they don't not necessarily have to hold the ship up for you to get back to it and make it to the next port. So that's just something that I believe is true, but I don't know if you've heard the same thing, Chris.
Yeah, that's basically the truth. Now, Shore Excursion Group actually has a return to ship promise that if they do not get you back to the ship, that they will pay for you to either return home or they will pay for you to go to the next port and give you $1,000.
Oh, wow.
For your inconvenience. And Viator also has a similar guarantee with their excursions, short excursions too.
Alvin says, love the Schoolhouse Rock trick, Chris. We use those videos to teach our kids and our grandchildren. Conjunction, junction. What's my function?
Exactly.
I'm just a bill. My God, I think we all remember all those, right? All those great ones.
I wouldn't know what a noun was if it wasn't for Schoolhouse Rock myself. So.
Oh my God. Let's see. All right, let's see what I got. Anything else you want to add, Chris? I'm trying to go through my questions here. You answered everything. You're unbelievable. The knowledge you have on this is just crazy.
Well, excursions, going through the cruise line, it's good to do. I do a lot of research on my own. There's a lot of companies out there that can do accessible excursions for you, but I also find a lot of companies that can do accessible transportation. So, and that's one of the things that I've been looking at. And I think one of these times, Randy Scrowsnest and I are going to get together and do a video about accessibility in cruising, because with his knowledge and with my knowledge, I think putting us both together, he definitely has 20 times more experience than I do, and probably 20 times more knowledge than I do. But I think with my experience and his experience, we can probably put together a pretty good video. He's going to carry him, of course, but I think between doing that, we can probably put together a pretty good video because, looking at St. Martin, I want to go out to the airport. There's no accessible transportation out to the airport. So I had to look and find an accessible company that would take me out to the airport. So, I've got that. And I'm actually going to go to a resort, the Morgan Resort, that's right next to the airport. And we're actually going to go spend the day out there and watch the airplanes come in and come out and, have a little pool time and, do that. So, that's a nice area for us. So even if there's bad weather, we've still got a place to, hang out. So, we're kind of planning for a little bit of both things. If there's a tender port, we typically try to do the wheelchair, and then it's a little bit more feasible for us to just get a taxi and go somewhere else and things like that. So, I do try to find things on our own, but like I said, when we were in Cozumel and we were in that odd port, we just kind of pulled up MapQuest or not MapQuest, but Google Maps, and just kind of drove around, and kind of found a little shopping area and
do your own thing. I think one of the big things too is always make sure you're on ship time.
Yes,
because that is probably one of the biggest things. Make sure you keep your watch and everything set to ship time and not change.
And I'm kind of OCD when it comes to that. I'm not going to be waiting until the last half an hour before I get on the ship. I'm at the ship 2 hours before it departs. Okay,
I'm the same way. I'm the same way.
I'm not going to be a last minute pier runner.
I want to be that pier runner.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. I mean,
do the same thing. I always give myself ample amount of time to make sure I'm there well before that ship planned. Last board.
If it says gangway up at 4:30, by golly, by 2:00, I'm already making sure I'm making my way back towards the ship. My wife wants to still shop, darling. I'll meet you on the ship.
Right, exactly. So we're having this discussion with you. It seems like most cruise lines and cruise ships have been very progressive now. Even some of the older lines you talk about too are pretty mobile, are pretty accessible.
Yeah, whenever a ship goes into dry dock, if they weren't accessible beforehand, they typically add more rooms. The ADA requires a certain percentage of rooms. I'm not exactly sure what the number is, but compared to regular cruise cabins to accessibility, they need to have a certain percentage of accessible cabins.
Oh.
Now, that could be anywhere between inside, ocean view, balcony, and suites. So, you know, you may not always get the type of cabin you want, especially if you're booking late. So if I ever wanted to take a last minute cruise, you know, my wife and I like to, you know, get a balcony cabin, but if there's not a balcony cabin available, we want to get on a ship, we may be looking at an inside cabin, which is fine by me. Put me in with a chain, I'll be happy. You know,
Right.
as long as I got a place to lay my head at night, you know, I'll be happy. Our first cruise, we were able to get a balcony because we booked, you know, it was kind of not too far away from COVID. So we were able to get a cabin, you know, not necessarily last minute, but it was after Thanksgiving. We took a Christmas cruise.
Mm-hmm.
So we basically paid for that. And the other last minute cruise I was able to get on was an MSC cruise. Now I hear Virgin is pretty easy to get on from an accessible standpoint, but don't take that as all the time, because the minute I say that, you're going to try to get on a Virgin cruise and it might all be booked up. So, you know, you can sometimes find an accessible cabin last minute, but don't hold your breath.
Right. Plum Crazy says the other caveat to getting back to your ship on time is making sure that the port isn't going to be a problem with tides. Listen somewhere that someone didn't get back and they were left behind. But I wouldn't think about the tide though affecting that.
Yeah, I hear that's going to be an issue with the port that we're going to in St. John. I think there's something about the tidal, something or another. I remember hearing something about that in our Facebook group. So.
Let's see. S Crossnest says Rome is awful for a scooter. Cobblestone brick, very narrow sidewalks. Vatican was perfect, very accessible. Plus, docents looked out and helped you out.
Yep,
so
that's Crow's Nest. That's Randy. That's
okay. Thanks for the input. Appreciate that.
Yep.
Let's see. What's this? Cam fan, remember having to print out directions from MapQuest before GPS. Heck, I remember paper maps.
Here's the thing.
Yep.
Here's the thing. If you miss your ship and you have a mobility scooter, you are responsible for transporting that scooter back with you.
Oh.
Luckily, the airlines will transport your scooter for you. So even if you do have a heavy-duty scooter, it will be transportable, but it is a pain in the butt.
Yeah. You know, I think it was last week, I was doing travel emergencies and stuff. And part of my thing was like, I print out a paper. Sometimes I'll print out a paper map and have it because in case I don't have cell phone coverage or, you know, obviously a lot of today we have all these little battery pack things that we take with us for our cell phones in case they die because we're so cell phone dependent. But if you're using your cell phone map and now that goes down, it's like, I mean, I guess you can ask somebody, hey, you know, usually where I am, I can see the cruise ship from where I am and go like, I gotta go over there. You know.
Okay. Here's a little tidbit for you. I had a blue cell phone. See my black cell phone? When I was on the NCL ship, my phone decided to die the last day of the cruise.
Oh.
Die. DED, dead. Die. Now that was only inconvenient for, you know, just being able to pull up, take pictures, you know, as a YouTuber, want to take videos, stuff like that. But my insulin pump, everything was controlled by that phone. I went a day and a half without insulin because of that. So, wow. And I never take my other controller with me. I never even thought about it. So, you know, don't always rely on your cell phone. And that was the first time I've ever had that issue. And then I lost, you know, 12 years of pictures off of that phone.
Oh.
But I went and paid dearly at a cell phone repair company to get my pictures back because they weren't backed up due to my mistake.
Wow. So they were able to get the pictures and stuff out of the phone, huh?
They were able to get them back, but I did pay out my nose for it.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
But now I've got two backups. So yeah, trust me, they're all back. They're backed up, and I check them every day.
Yeah, I know. Like even me, like I noticed, I actually turned off my backup on my phone because I'm taking so many videos, especially on cruises and everything now on my phone and my other media, that it was when it would upload to Google Uploads the cloud, I'm running out of space. It's like, oh, you want to buy more space? You want to buy more space? So now I take a. I got it over here. I can't. Oh, it's a. It looks like this, but it's different.
Right.
It's portable hard drives. I take portable hard drives with me with my laptop, and then every night I'll take whatever I do for the day of wherever I'm going, and all my videos and pictures off the cell phone, I'll download to my portable hard drive and just have it as a. That's where I'm kind of leaving the media,
Do you have Amazon Prime by chance?
I do. Yeah.
Amazon Prime has Amazon Photos. You have free unlimited photo upload. And then video is, you've got very limited space on video, but I think it's something like $7 or $8 a month for like 5 terabyte. It's dirt cheap. It's dirt cheap. So
and you can download straight. It downloads straight to that through your phone.
It will back up. Yeah. It'll back up your phone.
That's worth it. Yeah.
So look at Amazon Photos. Not that they don't pay me to say that, but Eddie Lugo actually told me about that the other day. And, because I've had Amazon Prime for about the past 3 or 4 years. I didn't even know anything about that.
Right.
But I still use my Google, and I pay for Google for extra storage too. So, it's better to double up.
Yeah, that's true. Because even that, I store it on that hard drive. Nothing saying something's not going to happen to that hard drive. You know what I mean? And then I got everything on that hard drive. And once, redundancy is a good thing. And when it comes to this stuff, it really is. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So, yeah, you never, it's just like anything else. You don't know you need it until you need it.
Right. Let's see. We got here for everyone's saying they're going to check the Amazon Prime up, the backup.
Yeah, it was dangerous. I could have ended up in the hospital, but
sure.
Trust me, my son was with me, so he was keeping a close eye on me.
Plum Crazy says, if anyone has M365, I just upgraded my plan for very little to get 11 terabytes of storage.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for that, Plum Crazy. Cam says, Shutterfly is a great place to back up your photos free, just no videos. Thanks, Cam Fam, for that. Appreciate it. I don't know if I got anything else, Chris. I think it seems like the cruise ships have done a pretty good job of accessibility. To me, it seems like now it might be more the ports, and you're seeing how about the islands? Any of these islands that these cruise ships own, are they pretty accessible now?
Yeah, the private islands are very accessible. The only one that I've ran into that has been a challenge was Labadee, because we did a sip and paint. And I actually had to have some crew members push me up a hill because it was a very steep hill. Going down it was fun, but it was the private islands are very, very accessible. I've never ran into too many spaces that are not, because even if I can't get to where I need to go, they do have beach wheelchairs. So you can just park your scooter and go to grab a beach wheelchair. Ocean Cay, it's all sidewalk around that you can get to anywhere you need to go. Coco Cay is, Great Stirrup Cay is. Those are the 3 private islands I've hit, and Labadee I've hit. All of them are very accessible. Labadee still had some sand areas, but they had some packed sand areas that you can get through pretty easily. As long as you don't be stupid and try to 4-wheel it in a place you're not supposed to, they're very accessible.
And I know when I went to Nassau Paradise Island Beach Club with Royal Caribbean, they had a lot of those beach wheelchairs, and they had actually they had strollers for kids so the parents could take their kids on the beach, and they had a ton of those beach wheelchairs there, which I was like, wow, this is pretty neat that they have this many there for that.
And Coco Cay and Great Stirrup Cay both have 0 entry pools too.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I didn't think about that. That's a whole other thing. I know Oasis of the Seas, which is an older ship, I did see for people that would need it, they had the pool lifts to get people in the pool that couldn't probably emulate into the pool or whatnot.
Right. Yeah, I'm not a big pool person. I can truly say the first time I've ever gotten into a pool was on Apex. They had those little champagne whirlpools they had up on the top deck by the walking track. That was the first pool thing I've ever gotten into on a ship, because it was even with the deck, and you just had 3 or 4 stairs to get into it. And we found one that was rather empty one day, and my wife and I decided to jump into it.
Let me ask you this question. This happens. I find this quite often happen on the ship, especially when a show's over or something big going on the ship gets over. people on scooters not being able to get into the elevator because, like you said, it takes up the whole like a good portion of the middle, and like the doors will open and be like, no, okay, doors open. Like, how long is it taking you to get into an elevator?
Well, I take my time, first of all, to leave the theater. And secondly, I don't go to that elevator bank right by the theater. I go to the middle bank or the other end. So I'm not going to try to get on those elevators right there.
That way they're not as crowded and people aren't going down that end of the ship. So you kind of like get a little bit more.
Yeah. And I might find a watering hole on my way. So
that happens. That happens, you know.
I mean, I'm on a cruise ship and say, you know, you're not drinking and driving. I was like, as long as they don't ask me to drive the ship, I'm good to go.
Good to go. Good to go.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is very educational. I know I learned a lot. I appreciate you being here. Make sure you check out Cruising Chris M, his YouTube channel. And I know you mentioned Eddie from Lugo Studios. You hang out with him on Saturday nights at 9:00.
Yep. Saturday nights at 9:00. Now, here's one thing I do want to say is just because somebody has a disability, especially in a mobility scooter, don't think that they need special privileges. Just common courtesies. If it's their turn, let them go. If it's your turn, you go. Don't think you need to let them go before you just because they're in a mobility scooter. If somebody's in crutches or a rollator or something like that, yes, let them go because they obviously are having trouble standing up. I'm sitting in a chair. I don't need to go any faster than anybody else. You know, somebody says, go ahead and go. No, you guys go ahead. I'm happy where I'm at. Right. I can make a friend on a cruise ship, you know, with anybody. So, yeah, and like Cam Fam said, treat everybody equal, common courtesies, you know, hold the doors for everybody. And here's the thing. If you don't know how to use a smart elevator, watch the video. We were on Carnival Horizon. There's a video that plays constantly about how to use a smart elevator. If there is a handicap button, I know on MSC, on Carnival Horizon, and several of them that I've been on that have the smart elevators, use the handicap button. That will do a couple of different things. Number one, it will send you a more empty elevator. Number two, it will keep the elevator's door open longer so you can actually move over to that elevator. So, you know, because when you don't use that handicap button, the doors open and close pretty darn quickly.
Yeah.
So make sure you use the handicap accessible button.
It's funny you're talking about the smart elevators because I forgot which cruise ship we were on that had smart elevators. And I don't think I used the smart elevators properly. I think because they supposedly, I forgot who I saw this on, someone's video on some channel because I'm all over the place too. They said, obviously, when you do the smart elevator, you push the floor you're going to. And then someone says, not only do you push the floor you're going to, but you're supposed to push in a number of people in your party. Is that true?
Yes.
That's what I was doing wrong. I wasn't putting a number of people in my party.
And, you know, and even if you're a bigger person, don't be afraid to push it 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
But but if you're using the accessible button, you just need to push it once because it will send you a less full elevator. Because when I would use that button on Carnival, 9 times out of 10, I would have an almost empty elevator come.
Oh, wow. So, yeah, that's pretty good. Well, because it knows that you need so much room, and it's going to give you an elevator in that bank that can take you in the scooter on that elevator, you know?
Exactly.
And you know, the other thing, too, is sometimes people might see someone on a scooter and be like, oh, my, they got up and they're walking over there and doing that. You don't know what that person's ailment is. You don't know, you know, their history. So just because they can get up and walk to a chair or go somewhere that does, like, you don't know their history. So you can't say that, like, they don't need that scooter. Why are they using that scooter? You don't know the whole situation. So when you see someone, obviously they need it, you know?
And I can walk short distances. I mean, I can walk, you know, maybe 50 yards if I have to. I won't feel the best after I have to do that, but I can. So usually what I do is, like, when I go to a dining room, I will drive my scooter to my table, and then they will take my scooter and park it outside. And then 9 times out of 10, they'll ask me, do you want me to get the scooter for you? No, I'll just walk for it because it does me some good to get up and walk every once in a while. So I'll typically walk and get it unless I'm all the way in the back or something like that, or, you know, but they will go ahead and take the scooter out and, you know, park it out of the way because I don't want to encumber anybody else from having to get in or out.
Right.
So yeah, they'll move it out of the way for you. In the buffet, you know, 9 times out of 10, you know, you'll get a crew member come up and ask you if you need any help carrying stuff. So that's something else that, you know, cruise lines are very good about doing. You know, if you have You know, and they'll even get a tray. They'll, you know, because they say cruise ships don't have trays anymore. They do. You just the crew members will just go get them for you, and that they're not going to leave them sit out.
Right.
They'll put stuff on a tray for you, carry it to your table, and take it back.
I think one of my pet peeves is when people leave food in the hallway.
Yeah.
It's like when I get food or I get drink or I get anything that out from the buffet, whatever, bring it back to my room. I leave everything on my desk or my counter, and then when the next day when they do my room, they come and take the stuff. I'm so tired of seeing pizza slices upside down on the carpet or this pile of dishes outside the stateroom that people just feel like, well, I'm just going to put it outside. I don't want it in my room. I'm going to stick it outside. No, people, do not do that.
You want to know what the easiest thing to do is? Call room service and have them come pick it up.
That's even better. I didn't even think of that one. That's even better.
You know, because if you get room service, you know, when they deliver it, ask them, how do you want me to take care of my tray? 9 times out of 10, they'll say, call us back and we'll come pick it up. Or when you meet your room steward, hey, if I bring a plate back from the buffet, where do you want me to, do you want me to leave it in my room, or do you want me to call somebody to pick it up? And a lot of times they'll say, call room service and they'll come pick it up. Because I know, like Celebrity, they don't want you to leave stuff out in the hallway. It's a higher end cruise line. Princess don't want you to leave stuff in the hallway.
Right.
Royal Caribbean doesn't want you to leave stuff in the hallway. Carnival says to put it out in the hallway. I think I don't like that look. And
No,
I called my room steward, or I called room service, and they came and picked it up for me.
Bye, Bald Eagle. Thanks for coming in. I know Alvin wants to know, does Royal have the feature? I'm thinking he's thinking Smart Elevator, and I can't remember if Utopia had that or not, to be honest with you.
I think Utopia. Shoot, I'm trying to remember because I've been on Utopia.
I can't remember.
I know
either.
Star and Icon do.
They have it.
I know Star and Icon have the destination elevators. I want to say yes for Utopia.
I want to think it did, because I mean I've been on it twice and I can't remember, but I want to say it did.
Yeah, because any of the newer ships that are coming out have the destination elevators. So
going to that elevator. But all right, Chris. Well, I really appreciate you being in, coming in tonight and hanging with us for a while, giving us all this great information. I mean, we talk primarily about scooters and stuff. I mean, there's a whole other realm of disabilities and stuff too. You know,
right. And there's autism, special, you know, different types of things. And you know, I'm not as well versed in that. I mean, Plum Crazy, I think, is probably a better versed in that. But
yes,
you know, let me go ahead and talk about one more thing. If we got
sure, yeah, no, we're not anywhere. We don't have to go anywhere.
If you are going to take a mobility scooter, wheelchair, or have a special need of any type, this includes food allergies, oxygen, or something like that. All cruise lines would like for you to complete a form. And if you get an accessible cabin, there is now a law that if you book an accessible cabin, within 30 days after you book that cabin, you have to complete that accessible form. They're not going to ask you for documentation that you have a disability, but you need to complete that accessible form saying, okay, I'm going to bring a scooter, I'm going to bring a wheelchair, I'm going to bring this, I need oxygen, or I have food allergies or autism or whatever it is. You know, this is what I need. So, and it needs to be completed by whatever you need. If it's within 30 days of sailing, so say if you book a last minute cruise, you need to call the accessibility line for that cruise line so they can get the arrangements made. That way they know you're bringing a scooter, because I know with, I want to say it's Costa or something like that, if you do not make arrangements beforehand, they will actually deny you boarding.
Oh, wow.
If you show up with a mobility scooter and they did not know you were coming, because they want to make sure that they have the correct personnel available in case of an emergency.
Right.
But the American cruise lines over here are not that strict. But it is good that you do that, because that way, if there is an emergency, they know where you're at, they know what your need is, and they know how to help you. Because they will ask you, you know, can you walk steps? Can you get up? You know, can you transfer to a seat?
Right.
And all that stuff. And be honest with them, you know, fill that out and do that. They're not going to ask you, you know, they're not going to ask you to produce a medical note or anything like that. Just tell them what you need and complete that accessibility form. All of them have it. You know, I haven't sailed a cruise line that hasn't had it yet. So if you can't find it, or if you need help, you know, send me a direct message on Cruising Chris M on Facebook, or, you know, get a hold of me here on the channel through my community tab or something like that on YouTube, or get a hold of JC and he knows how to get a hold of me.
Mrs. JC just put something in here towards the end here, and it's about food allergies, which she has all seafood. She can't be around, smell it, eat it. Like she's really severe seafood allergies. And I gotta say, every time we go on a cruise, mostly Royal Caribbean, and then Celebrity too. Celebrity was even more impressive. And let me tell you, Royal Caribbean's fantastic, but Celebrity was like even more so than that. And they were anytime we go in there, and the first night, that's why we like going to the main dining room to have the same wait staff all the time, is because once we tell them that first day in the main dining room, from then point on, they know she's got that seafood allergy, and they are so diligent about what they're getting served, as far as giving her the menu for the next day, so she can look at the menu and say, like, you know what, there's nothing on there I can eat. Can you make me this, which would be something special? And as long as they have a day ahead of time, they'll prepare her a special meal.
Now, here's my little story about Celebrity. Okay, I was on the Apex. I put my videos and stuff out, and shout out to Randy. He blatant self promotion for Randy. Not self promotion, but he put out a video about a week ago about how to use a smart elevator with a mobility scooter. I put one out a while ago, but his is probably more modern, probably a little bit better done than mine is. But go check his out for how to use a smart elevator. But my story about Celebrity Apex, I was in a concierge cabin. Okay, we had a concierge balcony. With concierge level, you get canapes delivered in the afternoon. They're like little snacks. Day one, we got something, I can't remember what it was. Day two, we get our canapes delivered, and I was out doing something. My wife was in the room, and it was like little something or another with shrimp on it. I come back to the room, I go to pick up the little dome. My wife says, "Don't touch it." I was like, "Why?" She tells me what it is. Of course, she ate it, or ate half of it, and I was like, "Oh, well, it's a good thing you said something, because I've got seafood and shellfish allergies too." So I called down to the concierge desk to say, I've got seafood and shellfish allergies. It's marked on my, forms. Can you please, talk to the chef or whoever does the stuff for canapes, take care of it. So I figured that's taken care of. Next day, we get our canapes delivered, has salmon all over it.
Oh my God. Well, after you called down there and told them you had the seafood allergy?
After I called down.
Wow, I'm shocked.
So the next day, I actually go down to the concierge desk, and in a joking manner, I said, "Are y'all trying to kill me?" She goes, "What?" And I said, "Y'all sent salmon to my room on the canapes." "No." "Yeah." So from then on, we got cheese and crackers.
Yeah.
Every day.
We got the cheese and crackers one day, and we're like, we don't really do that afternoon, that snacky thing. We're like, you know what? You don't have to give that to us any for the rest of the cruise, because I don't want to waste it, But I'm
kind of like Eddie Lugo. You give me some cheese, I'm a happy camper, man.
What's the website? What's the YouTube channel for who has the video about the smart elevator?
It's Crow's Nest.
Okay.
4262.
Okay, there you go. Oh, okay, gotcha. Crow's Nest 4622. Yep. Yeah, check that out if you want to check out the video on the smart elevator. I'll give you a quick story about what happened to the missus on Celebrity. So we were with some friends. We had a table for four in the main dining room, and Celebrity, they have different foods in different restaurants. So you could travel every night, you go to a different restaurant, get different ambiance.
In the main dining room, yes.
Yeah, and a different menu for each restaurant. So I don't know how I found out, but the first night in the main dining room, I found out you don't have to go, which is nice, because I looked at all the dining rooms. They are different. They are nice to go to. But you don't have to go to each dining room. If you ask for the menu from those dining rooms, they will bring it to the dining room you were in. And that's what we ended up doing. So we'd have the same wait staff. So that night of the incident, I call it the incident. I don't know what they had, but it was some fish dish, and it came by our table. And this fish smell was so strong. My wife got one whiff of that. Her lungs closed up. She goes, I gotta go. And out she went, to the hall of the cruise ship, outside the main dining room. She has an inhaler. Obviously, she has an EpiPen too all the time with us for that reason. Took on an inhaler, couldn't breathe. Now the managers all come running out. All the staff comes running out, because now she's like, "Oh, let me call emergency." No, time out. Yep. I know how much that costs. No, don't call. I know. If it was emergency, we've been together long enough. I know what's a
Yeah.
true emergency and what's like, okay, she's
Yeah.
going to get over this. And I could tell this is going to be when she's going to get over. So anyways, that happened that night, and they were like, "Oh my God, you're going to be okay." Yep, she's okay. Which she was. Got through that. So I guess the next night was going to be lobster night. Now this just happened this night. So when we came to dinner the second night, they put us in a totally separate section, way in the front corner of the restaurant. Nobody around. They like all the tables around us were empty. They didn't let anybody sit at those tables. And we had our dining experience in that corner by ourselves. And then once we left, they would fill it, they fill it. But I'm like, wow. From that time that she had that the night before, they went that far because they knew what happened to her to give us that kind of space. I mean, I was impressed with that. I really was impressed with that.
Yeah, I had a similar experience on Celebrity. We were at a two-top, and you know how the two-tops are very close together.
Oh, they're tight. They're tight.
And the table next to us got a fish dish. And I had a reaction also, and I got up and left. And of course, the managers were all freaking out, and they went and took my wife stayed back, and I just went back to the room, got my medicine, and just kind of stayed there and whatever. So the next night we go back, and we didn't get to the front of the dining room. We were actually towards the back of the dining room, but yeah, there was nobody around us.
Same thing.
We were literally by ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I found that to be really, good that they would actually do that.
Accommodating,
And
my wife does like to eat seafood, so if she wanted to order seafood, they would actually let her go sit somewhere else and dine by herself, and I would sit by myself. And then after she was done eating, she would come back to our table and we'd have our dessert.
Oh wow, that's pretty good. That they will separate you for that and then bring it together. Normally, to me, I have seafood too all the time. A good seafood dish doesn't smell like seafood. I hate to say it. Normally. But there are times, there's even a local restaurant we go to all the time, and there's one dish that has that strong fish smell, and they'll go by our table, and there goes my wife out the door, like, oh, I need to check, box this up, I gotta go. It's just unfortunate. It happens, though. It sounds like you got a very similar allergy, because even the smell seems to affect you also, it seems.
Right. Yeah, I do not go to the main dining room on lobster night.
Yeah.
And they make accommodations for me. So I'm not going to say what they do for me, because I don't want everybody just to claim they have a seafood allergy to get that benefit. But
exactly.
They do make accommodations for me.
That's awesome.
It's very kind of them to do that.
I find that most cruise ships will accommodate. If you tell them something or give them a good enough, they'll accommodate you if they can.
Yes, they will. Now, talking about Celebrity Apex and a scooter, how I said I don't do some smart things. You know how you get back to Eden, you got that little mirrored place with the Zen music that plays?
Oh, that place, isn't that place crazy with that Zen music playing?
Yeah, I used to use that as a time trial to see how fast I can get through on my scooter. And that may have been with or without liquid encouragement. So
I was going to say maybe several beverages, maybe, because let me tell you, that's not a wide hallway. That's a pretty.
No.
And then in the middle of it, you got that little statue. That's like you got to kind of do a serpentine around that guy.
Yeah. So I've done some not so smart things, and I made it through it every time without hitting a wall or the statue.
Wow, that's pretty good, because I've been on there and I know exactly what you're talking about. And,
at full throttle.
That's impressive. That's some impressive driving, I must say.
I've had to slam the brakes a couple times because somebody had appeared, but yeah.
Plum Crazy says, Chris, I'm going to steal your wife for dinner one night, and you can have Scott. We will seafood it up.
There you go. There you go.
Too funny. But we did the mobility, and then we kind of transitioned over a little bit to allergies, but it's all good. We got a bunch of different stuff in here.
Yeah.
So.
And I just did a show the other day about allergies too. So I talked about 15-20 minutes about it. So
yeah, perfect.
Anybody wants to check that out? A little bit of self-promotion. I'm getting better at it, but
yeah. No, hey, we're all small channels. We're all trying to grow here and there and get this YouTube thing is not an easy thing. Let me tell you, it's a learning experience every day. It truly is.
And if I can help somebody to get on a cruise if they're afraid to cruise because they do have allergies or they have a mobility issue, I think we've done good. So
yeah, absolutely. So don't forget to check out Cruising Chris M's YouTube channel, folks. Don't show him some love over there. I'd appreciate that, because he's been great for us here tonight. A great guest. Thanks again for my shirt. I really appreciate it. And thank you for everything. And you've done for me. I truly appreciate it. And if there's anything I can do for you, sir, be sure to reach out to me, and I'm sure we'll be in touch soon. Enjoy your trip. I hope you have a great time, and I can't wait to talk to you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. Thank you for joining us tonight, and be sure to subscribe to my channel, check everything out, and that way you don't miss the next journey. Let's go.